Meet the sports injury.
Gotta put in the work here.
Just when you thought you were an invincible physical specimen, an injury can come along into an athlete's life to humbly put mortality into perspective. Some are an unwelcomed acute surprise. Others are chronic and caused by repeated overuse. Whatever the injury, like the plague, they're wanted by nobody. Bumps, bruises, or breaks, no injury is exempt from the truth. It's safe to say that jumping off stuff is inherently risky. No matter what the age, what the height, or what the landing pad. And in the case of extreme sports, cliff diving is clearly not exempt. Very few human bodies can handle the physical punishment. With competitive jumps 28 meters high, or the height of an 8-story building and speeds of up to 85 kilometers an hour, one false move and the result is pain.
It is very important to be physically fit. We don't just show up and start diving. There is a lot behind that we have to do. The better shape you're in, of course, the better you can perform.
The eyes are probably the most important thing. Is your GPS.
The impact is just immense.
In fact, it can be up to 5 G-force impact.
It can feel like an uppercut from Mike Tyson.
To be physically strong is a must. If you don't break the water, then the water's going to break you.
And if the water hasn't dislocated joints or compressed spines, there's another danger. The diving platform can be a punishing place to crack your head on, as Stephen Lobu can attest to. The American avoided a concussion after smashing his head on it at a 2015 Red Bull event at La Rochelle, France. He went on to win the event, the perfect closer to a crazy cliff diving campaign.
It's so amazing. It's been such a tumultuous year. I mean, everything from hitting my face on the platform to just finishing last twice, having to withdraw from a competition due to injuries. I couldn't be happier to take a win here.
Coming up, cracking keepers. The chances of winning a sporting championship are slim at best. But they go from slim to seemingly impossible if you're battling for bragging rights while injured. However, don't tell these warriors who played through the pain. He was the man every All Black looked up to. New Zealand's ferocious flanker Richie McCaw captained the All Blacks in 110 out of his 148 Test matches, making him the most capped Test rugby player of all time. McCaw called time on his international career after leading his nation to a second straight Rugby World Cup title in 2015. But the 3-time IRB Player of the Year was much worse for wear in the 2011 edition.
4 years ago, you had the other things that were going on with injuries and whatnot. And I think 4 years ago was more the emotional side as much as the physical that really was draining.
The physical drain came courtesy of a broken foot that McCaw played on for most of the tournament. Then All Blacks coach Graham Henry marvelled after the final. He can hardly walk, and how he played today, I just don't know. The incredible feat on a bad foot was confirmed well after the World Cup, when X-rays revealed a screw inserted to stop the deterioration of the injury actually caused a second fracture. Nowadays, Tiger Woods is seen as a man marred with a battered body, having pushed himself beyond mortal limits while desperately trying to overtake the Golden Bear, Jack Nicklaus, and his 18 major championship titles. But when he was at the top of his game, nothing could stop him. Not even 2 stress fractures in his left tibia and a non-existent ACL in his left knee. That was the diagnosis following his inspirational 2008 US Open victory, where he defeated Rocco Mediate in the first hole of their sudden death playoff. That made it 14 major titles for Tiger, leaving Kenny Perry to shout in awe, he beat everybody on one leg. There are other such sporting stories of heroic proportions, like former Major League Baseball pitcher Curt Schilling, who won Game 6 of the 2004 ALCS on a bloody ankle, courtesy of a patch job done before game time to suture a tendon in his ankle to ankle tissue. And then there's the shocking story of another All Black, Wayne Buck Shelford, who played an entire hour of New Zealand's test match against France in 1986 with a torn scrotum. So severe, it exposed his testicles. For the hard-to-please sports fan, world football is synonymous with diving, where an innocuous tackle is often greeted with Academy Award-winning pleas for emergency aid and solved with a simple splash of water. But the game has given spectators some spectacular acts of bravery, or perhaps insanity. For Bert Trautmann, football provided him with a new lease on life, and later on, nearly caused the end of it. A former paratrooper for his native Germany during the Second World War, Trautmann was transferred to a prisoner of war camp in Lancashire. Upon his release, he called England home, and soon his exploits as a goalkeeper in pickup games led to a contract with Manchester City in 1949, despite the uproar of those opposed to the team signing a former member of the Axis. But he soon became the club's undisputed leader, spending 15 seasons with the Citizens. He made 545 appearances, while earning FWA Footballer of the Year honours in 1956. It was in 1956 that Trautmann entered football folklore, thanks to his performance in the FA Cup final. While diving at the feet of Birmingham City's Peter Murphy with 17 minutes to play...
And then a clash between Peter Murphy and goalie Bert Trautmann. Trautmann's hurt.
Trautmann suffered a serious neck injury. However, he continued to play, preserving the team's 3-1 lead with a series of incredible saves. 3 days after collecting his winner's medal, X-rays confirmed that Trautmann played on with what was a broken neck. Trautmann's traumatic exploits proved the goalkeeper position isn't for the cowardly, as backstops throughout the years have since made save after save while showing little regard for their own safety. And 50 years after the Germans' near-fatal on-field accident, another keeper in England's top tier miraculously survived a collision with an opposing player. Petr Čech's claim to fame as one of the greatest keepers of his generation hasn't come without its bumps and bruises and a horrific incident against Reading in October 2006. The Czech international was knocked out after Reading's Stephen Hunt's knee connected with Czech's head when the latter tried to smother a ball. Surgery was needed to repair a depressed fracture of the skull, with a warning that a premature return to the pitch could prove fatal. "I don't even remember the kickoff, and I don't remember the incident," he said. He returned to the pitch wearing a rugby-style headguard and soon found the form that made him one of the most feared keepers around. The 196-centimetre tall keeper admits that it does hinder his ability to hear properly on the pitch, but despite expressing a desire to play without it, he's been advised to keep it on for safety's sake. Clearly, he's done well, donning the gear, having won a handful of Premier League titles, as well as the 2012 Champions League and the 2013 Europa League.
I said many times it's maybe the most underrated position in football, and the goalkeepers are more important than everybody thinks. And when you look at his record, he's absolutely fantastic, because considering the number of games he played and the number of games he had a clean sheet, that speaks for itself.
There once was a time when ice hockey goalies faced the prospect of getting a frozen puck to the face without a helmet. That's until 1959, when Montreal Canadiens great Jacques Plante came back from a 7-stitch gash, courtesy of a New York Ranger slapshot, with the game's first ever mask. And despite his coach Toe Blake urging him to take it off once the wounds healed, Plante refused, and Montreal went on to win 18 straight games. Hockey has since evolved into a high-speed spectacle where pucks can be blasted at keepers like cannons. Today's superstars can really crank it, like Alex Ovechkin, who has had his shots clocked at 160 kilometers an hour. And hulking defenseman Zdeno Chara recorded one at 173 kilometers an hour. So it's only natural that a keeper keep his face mask on. In the late 60s, Jerry Cheevers decided to paint a scar on his mask for every shot it saved from slicing his face up. In the 70s, Gilles Gratton gave his mask a more animalistic front. And in the 80s, Gary Bromley went skeletal. The works of art continue in today's game, with Roberto Luongo sporting a panther in honor of his Florida Panthers, while Tuukka Rask pulled out the claws for his Boston Bruins mask. Oddly enough, while the NHL now requires that all players wear helmets beginning with the draft class of 1979, there is still no rule that forces goalies to protect their mugs with masks. After the break, the hard knocks of the NFL. After the Carolina Panthers lost to the Denver Broncos in Super Bowl 50 by a count of 24-10, Panthers All-Star linebacker Luke Kuechly admitted to playing the entire postseason with a torn labrum, which is mind-boggling, especially when you consider he recorded 10 tackles and a sack in the final. But what's even more curious is that Kuechly was one of the reported 182 concussion cases the NFL had in 2015. A 58% jump from the previous campaign. However, the Cincinnati, Ohio native attributed his case to poor form.
The way the contact happened, it was poor tackling for him, and that's really what it comes down to is I need to have my head up, and if my head up so that issue doesn't happen, and I went down, I knew there was something wrong.
The concussion debate has been a raging topic in the NFL, leaving many athletes divided.
I don't want to be worried about getting an injury in football. You know, you're going to play differently than if you're ever worried about any kind of injury, ankle injury, finger injury, or head injury.
I plead the fifth. I ain't talking about that one.
However, the talk gained even more momentum after it was discovered that former Oakland Raiders star Ken Stabler, who died of cancer, had stage 3 chronic traumatic encephalopathy, or CTE, a condition associated with memory loss, depression, and progressive dementia.
The big impact, though, I think, is that this will be just another brick in the wall cementing for parents, for fans, for everybody, that playing football very likely is going to lead to brain damage.
Some 5,000 players have sued the NFL, claiming it hid the dangers of repeated head trauma. And there are even some critics of the sport who think that injury concerns could eventually lead to the demise of the sport altogether. All that has the NFL scrambling to stop the bleeding.
We continue to make rule changes in our game to make the game safer and protect our players from unnecessary injury.
In 2013, the NFL agreed to spend close to $800 million to diagnose and compensate thousands of retired players who developed dementia and other brain disorders associated with the violent collisions that come with playing professional football. The defendants claimed the league concealed the long-term dangers of concussions and rushed injured players back onto the field while profiting from them. One of the recipients of this settlement money was Kevin Turner, a former running back who had Lou Gehrig's disease thanks to his commitment to the game.
For me, the main reason I joined this litigation in the first place was to ensure that people, knew about the seriousness of brain injury and head trauma, especially the cumulative effects of it. And because I know I was ignorant and didn't know.
Turner eventually succumbed to the disease in March of 2016, joining a list of other illustrious champions of the game who were fatally affected by CTE. In 2011, former Chicago Bears Pro Bowl safety Dave Duerson shot himself in the chest, leaving a note asking for his brain to be studied, and was later diagnosed with CTE. "Please see that my brain is given to the NFL's brain bank," it read. In 2012, 10-time All-Pro linebacker Junior Seau committed suicide 2 years after retiring. The NFL sent his brain to researchers at the National Institute of Health, where it also diagnosed Seau with CTE. And in 2015, Will Smith starred in the biographical sports drama Concussion. Playing Dr. Bennett Omalu, it chronicles the forensic pathologist's battle against the NFL's suppression of his research. Kicked off when former Pittsburgh Steelers center Mike Webster was found dead in his truck in 2001 with severe brain damage.
There are current and former players who are, suffering and will suffer. So there was definitely a burden of responsibility to get it right. But at the end of the day, I feel like we've done a service to the truth and to the families.
Ironically enough, some of the implemented changes have left purists of the game shaking their heads, including former Dallas Cowboy quarterback Troy Aikman, who retired from the league in 2001 due to concussion and back issues. And a year after, Cowboys owner Jerry Jones announced he'd push Aikman to ignore the concussion talk and play in a key game, stating, "All data that we have so far don't point to lasting effects, long-term effects from the head trauma."
It seems to me like as far as the play on the field and the rules that have been implemented, it seems like the league has done just about as much as they can possibly do, short of just taking the pads off and saying that we're no longer playing contact football.
But the risks clearly are real. Just ask NFL Hall of Famer Joe DeLamalua. Diagnosed with CTE, he took an estimated 225,000 hits to the head over his 13-year career.
To be very honest with you, I don't even know what a concussion is. I was never knocked out. What's a concussion? They said, well, basically when you see stars. Like, oh my God. I mean, hundreds of times. I saw stars in practice. We hit hard all the time, and it was full go. Oh, I know so many of them. Mike Webster was a real good friend. We used to hang out at the Pro Bowl. He's dead. Lyle Zato, dead. John Matuzak, who I played against, dead. I can name all kinds of, I think L.C. Greenwood. There's so many that have passed away, and they'll say, well, that's natural death. Not at that age. I mean, come on. And it's a rough game. It's a tough game. And you're basically a mercenary.
If football is one of the world's most dangerous team sports, there is one that provides emergency rooms with even more visits. In the United States, over 2.5 million basketball players reported injuries of some sort in 2014. Fortunately for them, most were not of the really serious kind. Leading the way were ankle sprains with more than 258,000 cases, followed by big numbers in finger and knee injuries. It has provided one of the game's best players with one of its darkest injury moments. In August 2014, Indiana Pacers all-star Paul George leapt to contest a fast-break layup by James Harden in an intra-squad scrimmage, only to smash his leg against the bottom of the backboard stanchion. George suffered a compound fracture in both bones of his lower right leg.
I remember the training staff coming over and, you know, being by my side, holding me down, telling me to stay calm and not look at my leg. And, you know, that definitely helped me, you know, to not panic.
The break caused him to miss out on a chance to play with the US at the FIBA Basketball World Cup, which the Americans won.
It's something that I think I can overcome. It's a bump in the road, but, you know, I'll be able to battle through this. You know, there'll be a story that I can tell, a testimony that I'll have, and, you know, something that'll make me stronger.
George definitely did return, playing the final 6 games of the following season before coming back with a career year in 2015. In 81 games, George averaged 23.1 points, 4.1 assists, and 7 rebounds per game. And at the 2016 All-Star Game, he scored 41 points, or one shy of the record set by Wilt Chamberlain, all proof that PG-13 was back. Still to come, the deadliest sports of them all. When one thinks of the most dangerous sports in the world, the ones causing the most injuries, you can't look further than combat sports. Boxing has clearly seen some of the most brutal side effects happen years after the athletes have left the ring, with Muhammad Ali's very public battle with Parkinson's disease a reminder of just how destructive the sport can be. In fact, research done by the Association of Neurological Surgeons revealed that nearly 90% of boxers suffer a brain injury of some extent during their careers, with the repeated trauma to the head causing them to be prone to Parkinson's or Alzheimer's late in life.
I'm here to kill and be killed.
And then there's the world of mixed martial arts. It is true that between 2001 and 2014, there have been just 4 reported fatalities in sanctioned events, 3 of which coming from hemorrhaging in the brain. But with the sport essentially becoming the modern-day equivalent of the death matches seen in ancient Roman times, soon this sport will statistically take top spot. Until then, the sport that ranks first for injuries is cycling. Whether they stack it in track cycling or hit the deck on the street, no surface is considered entirely safe for the athletes of the sport on 2 wheels. And if the surfaces are causing cyclists to slide off track, there are a number of other obstacles to a safe journey to the finish line, like speed or even service cars. Take the 2015 Tour of Flanders in Belgium, which featured one service car clip Jesse Sargent, leaving the New Zealander with a broken collarbone. In a second incident, a car crashed with Sebastian Chavanel, knocking him to the pavement. But despite their tiny frames, many cyclists seem to bounce back and pedal on. Recreational cyclists aren't exempt from the danger either. In fact, in the United Kingdom in 2014, 113 people were killed while recreational bike riding. 3,401 were reported as seriously injured, while another 17,773 were reported as slightly injured. The phrase that says no pain, no gain is a cruel one because it toys with the psyche of every professional athlete. How far do you push before the consequences are long-term? Or will there be any consequences other than the joy of a goal accomplished, a finish line crossed, or a trophy hoisted to the air? Ultimately, some sporting occupational hazards need to be tested. Others terminated. And that is the truth.